Good evening, everyone. Imagine a group of young athletes, fresh from a day on the cricket field, gathering for a simple dinner to celebrate their passion for the game. Now picture that moment shattered by the roar of fighter jets and the devastation of airstrikes. This isn't a scene from a thriller, it's the grim reality that unfolded. Today in Afghanistan's Paktika province, where a Pakistani military operation claimed the lives of at least 8 local cricketers and several civilians, abruptly ending a fragile ceasefire and reigniting tensions along one of the world's most volatile borders. Tonight we dive deep into this tragic event, exploring what happened, why it matters, and what it could mean for peace in the region. Stay with us as we unpack the facts with clarity and context. Let's start with the timeline of events. On October 17, 2025, Pakistani forces launched airstrikes into Afghan territory, specifically targeting areas in Paktika province's Argan and Barmal districts. These strikes came just hours after a 48-hour ceasefire, brokered to halt escalating border clashes, had been extended to allow for high-stakes talks in Doha. According to Afghan officials, the attacks hit residential areas, killing at least 10 people, including 2 children, and wounding a dozen more, with reports of follow-up strikes intensifying the chaos. Among the dead were 8 club-level cricketers from Argan district, who had just returned from a friendly match in the provincial capital of Sharana. They were at a communal gathering when the bombs fell, turning a moment of camaraderie into one of unimaginable horror. For other players were injured in the blast, their dreams on the pitch cut short in an instant. To understand how we got here, we need to step back and examine the broader context of Pakistan-Afghanistan relations, a powder keg of historical grievances, militant activity, and mutual accusations. The two nations share a 260-kilometer porous border, known as the Durand Line, which has long been a flashpoint for cross-border incursions. Pakistan has repeatedly accused the Afghan Taliban government of harboring militant groups like the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan (TTP), also known as the Pakistani Taliban, who launch attacks from Afghan soil into Pakistan. Kabul, in turn, denies these claims and counters that Pakistan's military actions violate Afghan sovereignty and disproportionately harm civilians. This cycle of blame isn't new. It's rooted in decades of conflict, including the Soviet invasion, the US-led war post 9/11, and the Taliban's return to power in 2021. The immediate spark for today's strikes appears tied to recent violence. Just days ago, on October 17th, earlier this week, a suicide attack near the Afghan border killed 6 Pakistani soldiers and 6 militants in a military camp in North Waziristan. Fierce clashes erupted last Saturday, leading to dozens of deaths on both sides before the ceasefire was announced on Wednesday. Pakistan's Foreign Office described the truce as a mutual agreement, requested by the Taliban to de-escalate and pave the way for negotiations. Yet by Friday evening, that calm was shattered. A senior Taliban official bluntly declared the truce broken, accusing Pakistan of targeting civilian homes in a brazen violation. On the Pakistani side, officials framed the airstrikes as precise, intelligence-led operations against the Hafiz Gul Bahadur group, a TTP affiliate in self-defense, insisting they exercised extreme caution to avoid civilian casualties and that the actions were in response to unprovoked militant aggression. They even reported killing 94 militants in operations over the past 4 days, including during the ceasefire period, and seizing explosives meant for further attacks. Now, let's focus on the human cost, particularly the loss of those cricketers, a detail that has amplified the outrage and brought a poignant, personal layer to this geopolitical strife. The victims, identified by the Afghanistan Cricket Board as Kabir, Sibghatullah, Harun, and 5 others unnamed in initial reports, were not soldiers or militants. They were everyday athletes fostering community through sport in a region where opportunities are scarce. Cricket has surged in popularity in Afghanistan over the past 2 decades, symbolizing resilience and national pride amid turmoil. These players represented the grassroots level, the unsung heroes who inspire the next generation, much like the national team stars who have competed on the world stage. In a heartbreaking video circulating online, one of the deceased bowlers is seen celebrating with his teammates just days before the strike, a reminder of the joy abruptly extinguished. Afghan fast bowler Faisal Haq Faruqi took to social media to condemn the attack as a heinous, unforgivable crime, praying for justice and highlighting the disgrace of targeting innocents. It's a stark illustration of how conflict doesn't discriminate, claiming lives far removed from the battlefield. The reactions have been swift and vehement, underscoring the fragility of any potential détente. The Afghanistan Cricket Board issued a statement of profound sorrow, labeling the incident a cowardly attack by the Pakistani regime and a great loss for the nation's sports community. In a bold move, they announced their withdrawal from an upcoming Tri-Nation T20I series involving Pakistan, scheduled for late November, a decision that blends grief with protest, effectively using sport as a diplomatic tool. Broader Afghan society echoed this sentiment, with calls for accountability flooding social media and protests brewing in Paktika. The International Human Rights Foundation condemned the strikes as a grave violation of international law, urging global bodies like the UN and ICC to investigate the pattern of violence against civilians. From Pakistan's perspective, the narrative is one of necessity and restraint. The Foreign Office spokesperson emphasized that the strikes were not aimed at civilians but at terrorist elements threatening Pakistani security, and reiterated calls for Afghanistan to dismantle militant safe havens. They pointed to unreports documenting these threats, framing the action as part of a shared fight against terrorism. Interestingly, Pakistani officials expressed concern over what they called unwarranted aggression from Afghan forces and affiliated groups, flipping the script on who initiated the escalation. This back and forth highlights a core issue. Both sides view themselves as victims, perpetuating a cycle where retaliation begets more violence. On the international front, the response has been measured but pointed. Saudi Arabia, a key ally to Pakistan under a recent defense pact, voiced concern over the rising tensions and urged restraint and dialogue to prevent further instability. U.S. President Donald Trump weighed in earlier this week, dubbing the conflict Pakistan's war and warning of regional destabilization if the offensives continue, with delegations from both nations already en route to Doha for talks, led by defense ministers and military chiefs. The timing of these strikes raises eyebrows. One might subtly note the irony. Launching bombs right before sitting down to discuss peace is like showing up to a truce negotiation with a lit fuse, hardly a confidence builder. But beyond the diplomacy, this event exposes deeper ramifications for civilians caught in the crossfire. In Paktika, a province already scarred by poverty and conflict, the strikes have wounded women and children, destroyed homes, and sown fear that erodes daily life. It's a reminder that while governments trade accusations, it's ordinary people, farmers, families, and yes, aspiring athletes, who pay the price. Cricket, often hailed as a gentleman's game that unites divided nations, think India-Pakistan rivalries turned spectacles, here became collateral in a far less sporting dispute. There's a touch of dark satire in that, a sport born on English lawns, thriving in South Asia as a beacon of hope, now interrupted by the very borders it seeks to bridge. Looking ahead, the Doha talks, set to begin tomorrow, could be a pivotal moment or another missed opportunity. Pakistan has signaled readiness for dialogue, emphasizing shared anti-terror goals, while Afghanistan demands an end to sovereignty violations. The UN has reported hundreds wounded in recent clashes, underscoring the urgent need for verifiable de-escalation. Critics on both sides argue that without addressing root causes, like militant sanctuaries and economic desperation, these flare-ups will persist, turning the border into a perpetual war zone. In closing, today's tragedy in Paktika isn't just about lost lives. It's a stark warning about the human toll of unresolved conflicts. As we reflect on those cricketers, young men who wielded bats, not weapons, let's hope it spurs a genuine push for peace, where dialogue replaces drones and sports fields remain sanctuaries, not targets. Thank you for joining us. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you tomorrow with more on the world's unfolding stories.